I stood in the middle of the kitchen, my hands shaking so hard I had to hide them in my pockets. My father didn't even look up from his coffee. He just tapped his finger on the wooden table, the table I had polished every Saturday for 10 years, and said those 6 words that felt like a death sentence. "You have 2 days to leave." My mother stood behind him, crossing her arms. She didn't look sad. She looked relieved, like she was finally taking out a piece of trash that had been sitting in the hallway for too long. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I did something they never expected. I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. Happy. It was the kind of smile you wear when you're holding the detonator and the other person doesn't even know they're standing on a landmine. 2 days, I repeated quietly. They thought they were taking everything from me. They thought they were leaving me with nothing but the clothes on my back and a broken heart. What they didn't know was that I had been waiting for this moment. I had a folder in my bag and a secret in my chest that was about to burn their perfect world to the ground, but I didn't tell them that. Not yet. I just turned around and walked to my room because the timer had already started. And by the time those 48 hours were up, they wouldn't be the ones kicking me out. They'd be the ones begging me to stay. It's funny how a house can stop feeling like a home in a single second. As I walked up the stairs, the air felt heavy. This was a 5-bedroom house in one of the nicest neighborhoods in the city. To anyone passing by, we looked like the perfect family. My dad, the successful businessman. My mother, the elegant socialite. And my brother, Leo, the golden child. Then, there was me. I've spent 24 years being the backup child, the one who stayed behind to take care of the house while they went on vacations, the one who managed the bills when Dad's investments went south. I was the ghost in the hallways, but today, the ghost had become an inconvenience. Leo was moving back home after failing to find himself in Europe, which is code for spending Dad's money on parties for 3 years. He needed my room. He needed my space. And apparently, according to my parents, I had stayed long enough. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the clock. 47 hours and 50 minutes left. I could hear them downstairs laughing. They were already talking about what color to paint my walls for Leo. They weren't even waiting for me to pack. It's a strange feeling, realizing that the people who gave you life view you as a subscription they're ready to cancel. Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own home? Like you're just a guest who stayed a day too long? Tell me in the comments, because in that moment I felt completely invisible, but I wasn't going to be invisible for much longer. I reached under my mattress and pulled out a small black USB drive. I didn't know it yet, but this tiny piece of plastic was about to change the power dynamic of this family forever. To understand why I was smiling, you have to understand what the last 20 years were like. I remember being 6 years old. It was my birthday. I had spent weeks talking about a specific Lego set. When the day came, I ran downstairs, heart pounding with excitement. There were 2 gifts on the table. One was huge, wrapped in shiny gold paper. The other was small, wrapped in a grocery bag. My dad pointed to the big one and looked at Leo, who wasn't even the birthday boy. "Leo, this is for you, so you don't feel left out today." It was the Lego set I wanted. My gift? A pack of socks. You're the responsible one, my mom whispered, patting my head without looking at me. You don't need toys to be happy. That became the theme of my life. I was the responsible one. In high school, when Leo crashed his first car because he was driving drunk, who stayed up all night cleaning the glass out of the driveway so the neighbors wouldn't see? Me. When Leo dropped out of college, who wrote his apology letters to the dean? Me. I worked a full-time job while finishing my degree, and every cent I made went into a family fund that my dad managed. He told me it was for my future. He told me that one day this house would be mine. He told me we were a team. The only person who ever truly saw me was my Grandpa Silas. Grandpa Silas was a grumpy old man who smelled like peppermint and old books. He lived in a tiny cottage on the edge of the woods. He was the one who taught me how to read a contract. He was the one who taught me that family is a word people use to get free labor. Jamie, he told me when I was 18, never give away your power. People will take your kindness and use it to build a throne for themselves. You make sure you hold the keys. When Grandpa Silas passed away 2 years ago, I was devastated. He was my only anchor. My parents and Leo didn't even go to the funeral. They were too busy with a charity gala. They thought he died penniless. They thought he left everything to a cat sanctuary. But a week after he died, I received a letter in the mail. It wasn't from a lawyer. It was a handwritten note with a key to a safe deposit box. Inside that box wasn't money. Not exactly. It was a stack of papers, deeds, bank records, and a journal. Grandpa Silas wasn't just a grumpy old man. He was the original owner of the family business that my father now ran. And according to these papers, the business and the land this very house sat on never actually belonged to my father. My dad had been living a lie for 20 years. He had forged Grandpa's signature on a transfer of assets while Grandpa was in the hospital. I sat in that bank vault for 3 hours, reading the evidence of my father's betrayal. My heart was breaking, but my brain was waking up. For 2 years, I kept that secret. I played the part of the quiet, obedient child. I watched them spend money like water. I watched them treat me like a servant. I waited for them to show me 1 ounce of genuine love. I gave them 2 years to prove me wrong. I gave them 2 years to be a real family. But as I sat in my room, listening to them talk about throwing my junk away, I realized that the 2 years were up. They wanted me out in 2 days? Fine. But they had no idea who was actually the owner of the roof over their heads. The next morning, day 1 of the countdown, the atmosphere was suffocating. I came downstairs to get a glass of water. My mother was in the kitchen, scrolling through a furniture catalog on her tablet. "Jamie," she said, not looking up. "I've ordered a new bed for Leo. It's arriving on Wednesday. Make sure your room is completely empty by then. I don't want the movers tripping over your things." "Where am I supposed to go, Mom?" I asked. I wanted to see if there was any spark of guilt. She sighed, a dramatic, annoyed sound. "You're an adult. Figure it out. Maybe get a roommate? Or a small studio? You've been leeching off us long enough. It's time Leo had some stability." Stability. Leo was 30 years old. He had never held a job for more than 3 months. He had spent the last year in Ibiza on a spiritual journey that cost $50,000. "I've paid rent into the family fund every month for 5 years, I said calmly. "That's nearly $60,000. Can I have that back to help with a deposit?" My father walked in then, straightening his tie. He laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. "That money is gone, Jamie. Think of it as back pay for the food you ate as a child. You don't get a refund on being a son." He patted my shoulder, but his eyes were hard. 2 days. Don't make this difficult. We don't want to have to call the police to escort you out. It would be embarrassing for the neighbors to see. That was the moment the last string of my heart snapped. They weren't just kicking me out. They were threatening me with the police. They were willing to humiliate me just to make things easier for Leo. I watched them eat breakfast. They looked so confident, so safe. My dad was talking about the big Founders' Day party the company was throwing the following night. He was going to receive an award for family legacy. "It's a shame you won't be there," my dad said, smirking. "But since you'll be busy packing, I'll make sure to mention you in my speech, as a former member of the household." Leo walked in then, yawning. He looked at me and grinned. Hey, sis, can you leave the desk? I like the desk. Also, make sure you scrub the floors before you go. It smells a bit poor in here. They all laughed. I didn't say a word. I just nodded and went back upstairs. The disrespect wasn't just a byproduct of their love for Leo. It was a weapon. They enjoyed making me feel small. They felt powerful by stepping on me. But that's the thing about people who stand on others to feel tall. They never look down to see what's happening to the foundation. I pulled out my phone and made a call. Hello? Is this Mr. Henderson? Yes, this is Jamie. I have the original deeds. And the forensic audit. I'm ready to move forward. Yes, tomorrow night. At the gala. I want it to be very, very public. I hung up. My heart was pounding. I felt sick, but also incredibly light. Realized then that I didn't hate them. I just didn't belong to them anymore. What they didn't know, and what I had discovered in Grandpa's safe deposit box, was a document called a reversionary trust. Grandpa Silas was a genius. He knew my father was greedy. He knew my father had a flexible relationship with the truth. The documents my father had forged were clever, but they weren't perfect. He had forged a transfer of the management rights, but he never actually gained the ownership rights. The business, the house, and the entire family estate were held in a trust that stayed in Grandpa's name until his death. And according to his true, legal will, the one my father thought he had destroyed, everything skipped a generation. It didn't go to my father. It didn't go to Leo. It all went to me. Every single brick. Every single share of the company. Even the cars they drove. I was the legal owner of the company my father ran. I was the legal owner of the house they were kicking me out of. For 2 years, I had quietly worked with a lawyer, Mr. Henderson, to verify everything. We had the original signatures. We had the DNA tests on the stamps. We had a paper trail that showed my father had been skimming money from a trust that legally belonged to me. I could have stopped them a year ago. I could have stopped them when they forgot my graduation. I could have stopped them when they sold my car to pay for Leo's bail. But I waited. I wanted to see if there was any limit to their cruelty, and now I knew. There wasn't. I spent the afternoon of day 1 packing, but I wasn't packing my clothes. I was organizing the evidence. I had folders for the board of directors. I had folders for the press. And I had one special folder wrapped in a black ribbon for my father. I didn't know it yet, but the Founders' Day Gala was about to become the dissolution day for my father's ego. 6. Countdown phase 24 hours before. The house was buzzing with energy. My mother had a team of caterers in the kitchen. They were preparing for a small pre-party for the VIPs before the main event. I was told to stay in my room. Don't come out, my mother warned. You look tired and messy. We have important people coming over. Just stay upstairs and keep quiet. I sat in the dark, listening to the clinking of champagne glasses below. I felt like a prisoner in my own castle, but I wasn't sad. I was focused. When hours before, I woke up at 6 a.m. I took a long, hot shower. I put on my best suit, one I had bought with my own savings hidden in the back of my closet. I walked downstairs. My father was looking at himself in the mirror, adjusting his tuxedo. Still here? He snapped. You have until tomorrow morning. I expect the keys on the counter by 9 a.m. You'll have everything you deserve by 9 a.m., I said. He didn't notice the double meaning. He just grunted and walked away. Hours before. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Leo was lounging in the living room bragging to one of his friends on the phone about how he was finally taking over the master suite once the burden was gone. I walked past him. He tried to trip me. I just stepped over his leg and kept walking. You're going to regret being so smug, he called out. I didn't respond. I was busy checking my email. Mr. Henderson had just sent the final confirmation. The board of directors had been summoned to an emergency meeting at the gala hall 30 minutes before the ceremony. Hour before. The family left in the limousine. They didn't even ask if I needed a ride. They didn't even say goodbye. I watched the red taillights disappear down the driveway. I stood in the empty foyer of the house. I looked at the portraits on the wall. The perfect family. I took a deep breath. I picked up my briefcase. "It's time," I whispered to the empty air. I didn't take a limo. I took a regular taxi. I wanted to arrive quietly. I wanted to be the ghost one last time before I became the storm. 7. Public confrontation. The gala hall was magnificent. Gold leaf on the ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and the who's who of the city's elite. My father was center stage, holding a glass of scotch, laughing with the mayor. My mother was nearby, glowing in a dress that probably cost more than my first year of college. I walked in through the side entrance. Nobody noticed me at first. I looked like just another assistant. I made my way to the VIP lounge where the board of directors was gathered. Mr. Henderson was already there. He gave me a small, grim nod. "Are you sure you want to do this, Jamie?" he asked. "Once this goes out, there's no going back. They are your parents." I looked through the glass doors at my father. He was currently telling a story about how he built this empire from nothing through hard work and family values. They made their choice, too. "Days ago," I said. "Actually, they made it 20 years ago. I'm just finishing the story." I walked into the lounge. The 5 board members looked up, confused. "Who is this?" the chairman asked. "This," Mr. Henderson said, stepping forward, "is the majority shareholder of this company, and she has some documents you need to see immediately." For the next 20 minutes, the room was silent, except for the sound of paper turning. I watched their faces go from confusion to shock to pure, unadulterated horror. "This is fraud," the chairman whispered, looking at the forged transfer of assets. "If this is true, your father has been illegally controlling the company for 2 decades. "It is true," I said, my voice steady. "And as the legal owner, I am here to exercise my right to remove the current CEO immediately." Just then, the doors swung open. My father walked in, his face red with annoyance. "What is this? The ceremony starts in 10 minutes. Why are you all—" He stopped. He saw me. "Jamie? What the hell are you doing here? I told you to stay home and pack." He marched toward me, his hand raised as if he was going to grab my arm and drag me out. "Security!" he shouted. "Get this girl out of here." "The security is staying right where they are, Dad," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through his shouting like a knife. The chairman stood up. "Actually, Richard, you're the one who needs to leave." The look on my father's face was something I will never forget. It was a mixture of confusion and a slow-growing terror. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. "This is my company. This is my night." "No," the chairman said, holding up the forensic audit. "This is Jamie's company. It has always been Jamie's company. Your father, Silas, never signed those papers, Richard. We have the proof." My mother and Leo appeared in the doorway, drawn by the shouting. "What's going on?" my mother asked, her voice trembling. "Richard?" I stepped forward. I opened my briefcase and pulled out the black ribboned folder. I handed it to my father. "You told me I had 2 days to get out of the house," I said. "You told me I didn't get a refund on being a son. You told me I was a burden." I looked him straight in the eye. "But you forgot one thing. This house? It's not yours. This company? It's not yours. Even the tuxedo you're wearing was bought with money that legally belongs to me." My father opened the folder. His hands began to shake. He saw the reversionary trust. He saw the eviction notice, signed by me, for the house. You're evicting us? Leo yelled, stepping forward. You can't do that. Where are we supposed to go? You're adults, I said, repeating my mother's words back to her. Figure it out. Maybe get a roommate or a small studio? You've been leeching off me long enough. The irony hit them like a physical blow. My mother turned pale and had to lean against the wall. Jamie, please, she whispered. We're family. Family? I laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh, it was just tired. Family doesn't threaten to call the police on their child for the crime of living in their own home. Family doesn't steal their child's future to fund a party. I turned to the chairman. I want them removed from the building, now, and I want the locks changed on the house tonight. Jamie, you can't be serious, my father roared. He tried to, lunged toward me, but the 2 security guards, men he had hired, stepped in his way. Sir, please come with us, the guard said. Do you know who I am? My father screamed as they led him away. I do, I said quietly. You're a man who just ran out of time. The entire room watched in stunned silence as the founder of the company was escorted out of his own gala in handcuffs, not for the eviction, but for the 20 years of financial fraud I had handed over to the police that afternoon. Leo and my mother were left standing there, looking small and broken in their expensive clothes. The keys are on the counter by 9 a.m. tomorrow, I told them. Don't make this difficult. I'd hate to have the neighbors see you being escorted out by the police. The fallout was massive. The news of the fraud broke the next morning. The perfect family image was shattered. My father was facing 10 to 15 years for embezzlement and forgery. My mother and Leo had to move into a small 2-bedroom apartment. They had no money of their own. Everything had been tied to the company and the trust. I didn't take the money and run. I took over the company. It was hard. People looked at me with a mix of respect and fear. I had to rebuild the entire board. I had to fix the books. I had to prove that I wasn't like my father. But the hardest part wasn't the business. It was the silence. For weeks, my phone was silent. No apologies. No, I'm sorry. Just a few angry texts from Leo calling me a traitor. I didn't reply. I moved back into the big house, but it felt different. I took down the portraits. I repainted the walls. I turned Leo's master suite into a library dedicated to Grandpa Silas. I found a letter Grandpa had hidden in the back of his journal. It was dated the day I turned 18. Jamie, it read. If you are reading this, it means you finally found your spine. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive, but I hope this gives you the chance to protect yourself. Use the power well. Don't let it turn you into them. I sat on the floor of the empty library and cried for the first time in years. I wasn't crying because I missed them. I was crying because I was finally free. Have you ever had to cut someone out of your life to save yourself? It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but sometimes it's the only way to breathe. 10. Emotional ending. It's been a year since that night. The house is quiet now, but it's a good kind of quiet. I have a dog, a big, goofy golden retriever who doesn't care about trusts or bank accounts. I recently heard that Leo is working at a grocery store. My mother is teaching etiquette classes. They are surviving. They are learning what hard work actually means. I don't hate them. I really don't. Sometimes I even think about calling them. But then I remember the feeling of that kitchen table and the coldness in their eyes. Revenge isn't about hurting people. It's about restoring balance. I didn't take their lives away. I just stopped giving them mine. I learned that you can't change people who don't see a problem with their behavior. You can only change your distance from them. I'm not the responsible one anymore. I'm just Jamie. And for the first time in my life, I'm home. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever felt invisible, just remember, the ghost is often the one who knows where all the secrets are buried. Stay strong and never, ever give away your keys.